From the Star Conspiracy and the content channel, Hey, Bret Star. I'm Bret Star. This is Long Strange Trip, Episode 5.
All right. Hey, Lou, how you doing?
Hi, Bret. I'm good.
Thanks for taking the time to get together today and talk about the last 2 years. So just so everyone knows, when this thing finally airs, we're recording this on Tuesday, February 8th. And so it's probably a few weeks from now, at least, that you'll be hearing this. But Lou and I are going to reflect on it's been the last 2 years as part of a project that I have going on to just try to make sense of what the fuck just happened and what can we learn from it, and how can we use what we learned to make the world a better place. Let's take a step back, Lou. No one knows who you are. Tell everyone, what's your backstory? What do you do at the Star Conspiracy?
Well,
we just jumped into it.
We did, as we are wont to do, which is actually how I got started at the Star Conspiracy. I think we just jumped into it. I do all things content at the Star Conspiracy. I'm associate director for content, and I have a finger in the pies of rebranding and content strategy and content development and message development and writing everything from video scripts to websites to longer articles. And I've been at the agency, I think, going on 13 years. Baker's
13
dozen years, yeah. I've been there as long as anyone except the partners. I was a journalist. I was a newspaper man. And I say that without any sexual intention. Newspaper person. I was a newspaper man. I was a newspaper man at several papers across the country, literally from Denver to New York City to New Orleans to Fort Worth. Yeah.
That's kind of an understatement, right? When you say you're a newspaper man, I mean, like, you're pretty good at it.
I knew you'd bring that up. I was just telling somebody separately, one of our, Nancy Crabb, who's is the mama bear to our creative folks, and she didn't know this story, that when I first came to interview for the then Star Tin Cup and now Star Conspiracy, and I sat down, Steve Smith brought me in to sit down with you, Bret, and Bret said, you said to me, and I probably misquote, but I'm pretty close, if Steve wants to hire you, that's fine. I'm not going to, you're obviously the right person for the job, but I just wanted to meet somebody that's been nominated for a Pulitzer Prize.
That sounds about right.
I think we went to the usual next door, the bar next door after that. But, So I was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize for a body of work covering health and human services here in Texas.
I'm such a booster for you, Lou, that I've told and leaned into that story so emphatically over the years that I stopped remembering whether it was true or not.
It is now.
So you talked about this a little bit, but at what point did you realize the pandemic was going to change everything? So you talked about when you knew it had started.
That's a good question.
But when did you realize that it wasn't, that it wasn't like a 2 or 3 month thing, and that it was going to change everything?
Think here's when it hit me, and it dovetails with my personal story. It hit me, when did that summer. It was August and September. I had to go down, we're in Fort Worth. I'm in Fort Worth, which is, for those that are listening, may not know, is in north central Texas. I was being treated by doctors at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, which is now for me about a 4-hour drive, 4 to 4.5 hour drive. And in August and September of 2020, the first summer, it sounds so strange to say, the first summer of the pandemic, we've now had 2 summers of the pandemic, and I was put into a trial program and was going to be receiving radiation therapy, which would require me to get radiated once a day, 5 days a week for 6 weeks. So I was really fortunate to find a place to stay in Houston. There was a garage apartment from some folks that we knew through a friend. It was eerie. It was eerie to be down there without my home, my family, my wife, the dogs, in an unfamiliar setting, going to MD Anderson where you couldn't take anyone in with you if they were there to go with you, unless you were needed assistance. So you were going in there for treatment for your cancer by yourself, which for me was okay. But looking around me, I could see a lot of people that was not okay. I mean, they were scared enough as it was, even at such a patient supportive place as MD Anderson, which makes everything about the patient, everything. But it was University West, which is a thriving, really wonderful older neighborhood that I got to stay in, was so quiet when I'd go for my walks or when I'd head out in the evening or in the morning, and going to MD Anderson. And the people in Houston took it even more seriously for some reason than the people in Fort Worth.
Mm-hmm.
To go to the pharmacy, the CVS was, it had changed and it tilted for me. And it was in that experience where all of a sudden I realized, I think, what a lot of people realize. I thought about Aunt Sally, by then Uncle Sherrod up in Owasso, who I talked about earlier, had passed. And here was this woman in this nursing home by herself with no visitors, period. Fortunately, she is a very social woman and was doing very well. But that's when it really hit me. And to get to your point, that's when I realized this is changing how we relate.
So being diagnosed with cancer to the experience of coming to terms with the fact that we're in a pandemic. Did that have a significant impact on, your life goals, your view of life? How did that change your outlook?
Yeah, what the other thing it really caused me to, and it's a really specific thing. It cut me off from my daughter and my two grandsons. She's 39 now. They live in Southern California. They were then.
And just to be clear, not in a way that you've been enjoying a wonderful relationship with them, but so you're not estranged, but
physically, exactly. And that was a hit, and it made me realize how fragile that relationship is. I started doing Zoom once a week with the oldest grandson. He's 9 now, so 2 years ago he was 7, and we did Minecraft or something every week for half an hour. And my daughter, who's a teacher and educator, built that into his schedule.
Oh, that's great.
So it really strengthened my relationship with my first grandson.
Were you ever afraid of losing your job during the pandemic?
No, and I just unequivocally, I probably just stabbed myself in the foot. But
well, I've got some news for you,
Lou.
What was the weirdest or funniest thing that happened to you during the pandemic?
Boy, the weirdest or funniest thing that I can talk about in this podcast about the pandemic. Man, I don't wonder what that would be. One of the weirdest things is actually one of the last things, and it's what the agency has done in going to the metaverse or embracing the metaverse. And I will say up front that I'm on the fence about it, only because I think I was not a gamer. I kind of missed the whole gaming thing. I don't know if I was in a crease that was before and after it, or I just wasn't part of that crowd that even in the old days did Pac-Man. And then I don't do video games, and I'm not a gamer on board game. So the thing of using something that's got a lot of buttons and a lot of controls. I mean, I know about it because I go to visit my two grandsons, and they have the whole Xbox thing, and they beat me. They whip my ass at Super Mario.
And you
Brothers.
Played some Minecraft.
And I've played some Minecraft, but that was just watching them build stuff. We never did it two ways. But they got to build stuff, and they would explain to me what they're doing. So it was even better than a competition, because it was the lesson in inferential thinking. But so I put on the Oculus headset, the Oculus 2, and it took me quite a while to figure it out. But then when we did it with a little bit of training, And I got to sit in this workroom, this workplace setting with a couple of people, one of whom is down in Chile, whom I've maybe seen as a little square on a Zoom group meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And Raquel was now sitting next to me. You know, the idea that I could really connect with somebody. And of course, my mind went into all kinds of places that probably aren't appropriate for this podcast.
What do you think are the things that we got right during the pandemic?
Well, that's the first thing in the big picture. The thing we got right is we took the long view. We took the long view to get through the short view, the short term. And I think the thing we got right was saying, as we said earlier, I don't know if you know the movie Putney Swope. Hardly anybody does, but it's a great cult classic, I think, from the late 60s. And it's about Madison Avenue at the time, a very white bread Madison Avenue advertising firm with all these ancient white guys at the conference table. The board, the chairman dies at the conference table, and they have to elect a new head of the board. And there's one black fellow on the board, and he's like the creative musical creative director. And they all vote for him because they figure nobody else will vote for him. So he becomes the chairman of the board, and he says, I don't believe in sinking the ship. And they all breathe a sigh of relief. And then he says, unless you're going to sink the motherfucker. And in the next scene, everybody around the table are, got dashikis on and afros, and he announces they're no longer going to do advertising for G.I. Joe or cigarettes. So we didn't decide to sink the ship.
Yeah.
But we certainly decided that the ship is going in a new direction. And now's the opportunity to steer it that way. And we got that right. The other thing we got right and is reflecting on the past. We didn't just freak about the pandemic, I don't think. I mean, I should say up front, I'm not involved in the leadership at the agency. So when I say we, it's my view of the world.
Well, I could quibble with those words. You're involved with the leadership. You just don't go to that Monday meeting where we make decisions on spreadsheets.
I get to say shit and not go to the meetings. But I think the pandemic really helped us look at our past. I've heard more talk about, before we tried this and we learned that we shouldn't do this and we looked at that. I've heard that more in the last 2 years. So I think that's the second thing. In looking ahead, we really reflected on what has and hasn't worked and what from that we can bring forward and how we're going to bring it forward. And I think the one team experience is something we've done right. Whereas I referred to it earlier, I said when there's a new work and the other thing we've done right is bring everybody into the fold. We used to have for years we've had morning, we're as an agile shop. We have morning check-ins, and you go around the room, virtually otherwise, and you say what's on your plate for the day, if you have any blockers, and why you're doing it for the next person. So we call them, so that this can happen, so that person can do this. And we brought sales into that, so the sales team is in there, the office administration staff is in there. So I think one of the other things we've done right, speaking of meta, is created a lot more transparency throughout the agency.
What do you think we got really, really wrong, Lou?
Since the pandemic, during the pandemic?
Yep.
What did we get really, really wrong? I have to stop and think to myself, what have I bitched about? What have I verbalized to my wife or kicked the dog about? One of the things where we slipped is we waited way too long. We've always known that diversity, equity, and inclusion, was a weak spot for us. That it's hard. It's rough because on the surface, it looks like the partners are all white guys. So, but that's not fair. That doesn't say anything about the heart of the partners. But you look across the agency, and we've been missing the boat.
Well, I think it's fair from an evidence perspective. I mean, because our growth over the last 2 years has given us the opportunity to make a lot of progress
towards a lot of things that we haven't made progress on in a long time. And so, yeah, it's not in your heart, right? It's not my heart to not be, diverse and equitable and have an inclusive environment. That's not my heart, right? But what was I doing about it?
That's
what
right.
was I doing about
it?
it?
It comes back to what we talked about before. It's not what you think, it's how are you acting?
Yeah.
How are you acting? What are the actions and how do you respond to that? And, I just think we took a long time. But then I think one reason we're more involved in it now and actively working on it is that there are certain people we've hired that have said, I'm glad to be on board. Here's what you guys need to do about this shit.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's kind of like, being nose blind. We all worked together for so long and we grew a little bit, here and there, and we contracted a little bit here and there. But, we've doubled in size during the pandemic. We've never had such a huge wave of new people. And, they are coming in and saying, that really smells. Do you smell that smell? And we're like, what smell? What are you talking? Because we just got used to it. Yeah. So fresh eyes and a bunch of them all getting together saying, this is weird, right? It's not just me. Like, this is weird, right? And I think that's been, that's accelerated a lot of the things that were in our heart, but actually, kind of gave us the frame for making progress on them.
Yeah.
So it's been a big deal.
Yeah.
Got one more question for you. Do you think it's possible that the pandemic is going to end up making the world a better place?
Will it make the world a better place? I don't know. I don't know, but I don't, it might. I don't know. I really have no idea about that.
Well, you may or may not be surprised to hear that you're pretty much saying what everyone else is saying, which is, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but probably not. And, what I've gleaned from a lot of people's, responses to that question, is that our world got better, their world got better, but more worlds got created. And so there's just like more space between what I believe and what my group of people believe and what that group over there believes. And Ashley, I think, did a really good job of encapsulating this. She said self-actualization at an all-time high. She didn't say it this way, but she's like, this was a period of self-actualization. But in coming to that self-actualization, many people learn that they hate that other person who's also more actualized. And so, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Maybe it's further drawn lines. I mean, whoever thought that wearing a mask would be such a vociferous catalytic task? After I love and obviously there's my my stripes showing. But as Dan Rather said in a tweet, how many thousands of people have died for this country? You can wear a mask, but that's just another polarizing, maybe the pandemic has taught us that it's okay to be more polarizing. I don't know. I hope not, but that's what I fear.
I don't know. I don't want to be, negative about it, but, I thought that,
negative.
Well, I do have to say what's on my heart right now at this moment because I'm searching for meaning, and I think a lot of us are searching for meaning. And I just felt prior to this that something this significant, if I could have imagined what this even looked like, would bring people together against a common enemy, which is this, like unknowable, unseeable, like virus. And in fact, what it's done is drive us further apart. And that was a surprise to me. That's been a real surprise to me.
Yeah. It's fear-based. There's only two big emotions. There's love and there's fear. And we could go on about why I agree with you that it's, like I said, it's polarized people even further. And one argument is because that's in America, right? Let's look at the stripe of the beach ball we're talking about. Australia is just coming out of lockdown and they didn't fire their, but we in America had a leadership that pit A against B, that started out by saying, don't worry about it. It'll be gone by Easter.
Well, thank you, Lou.
Thank you
for the conversation.
Well, we do it too
infrequently.
Infrequent. Thank you for the word. We do it. We don't do it often enough. And a veteran. I'm a veteran. Give me my discount. I've been
should just
shopping.
give you like a discount card. You hit so many of the big discount categories.
Give me one of my discounts. I've been going to Ace Hardware for 20 years. I didn't know they offered 10% for veterans. Does this belong on Slack or does this belong in Gmail? And then I finally decided that's not my fucking problem. That's somebody else's. If you don't want to read it here, don't. You know, it's like, I always love it when somebody calls me and I answer the phone and they say, "Is this a good time to talk?" And I always say, "Well, I answered the damn phone." One of the things about this, by the way, is that Oculus is very ageist. There are no old avatars. And I'm not that I'm old, but you know, you can.
I made a pretty good old avatar.
Yeah, I'll have to add wrinkles or something. But
well, you can add wrinkles now.
And then
that's when the aliens come or the zombies come. You know, we're pretty much screwed.